views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the participants and do not necessarily reflect the views of BronxNet or the program underwriters.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mission BX. I'm Eileen Newman, and I'm your host. Mission BX is a collaboration between the Center for Bronx Nonprofits at Hostos Community College and BronxNet. We go behind the scenes to let you see what the workings are of wonderful nonprofit organizations in the Bronx. Today, we're going to be visiting with Eileen Torres, the Executive Director of BronxWorks. BronxWorks does lots and lots of things for over 60,000 people a year. So stay tuned to see what all those wonderful things are. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mission BX. I'm your host, Eileen Newman, and today I'm here with the other Eileen. I think there are two of us in the Bronx. I'm happy to be talking to Eileen Torres from BronxWorks. BronxWorks is, as she'll tell you, an amazing organization. I'm always stunned that any one person can be the executive director of an organization that big. And we'll be talking about, as we have with other organizations, where they were before the pandemic and what they're doing now. So, and I got to see firsthand what they do on Saturdays at this amazing food pantry with lots of people. So, Eileen, thank you for doing this with everything else you got going on. So,
thank you for being here.
So we did a show on BronxWorks before, as you know, and we looked at we took a tour, we looked at a lot of what you've been doing, what you were doing then. So what happened? It's a sort of our opening question that we've been asking a lot of the people we've going back to see. What happened when the pandemic hit? What happened?
Well, for us, there were a number of changes that we had to quickly implement. Internally, we were set up already to do some virtual, right? So a lot of the managers already had laptops and MiFi devices. The folks who really didn't have as much access to that were some of the sort of entry-level staff. So there was a quick scramble to order lots of equipment, get people settled in, while the other half of the agency was considered essential and had to remain open. And so on that side, then,
could you just tell who are the people who had to remain open?
So we have 24-hour facilities. We run a number of shelters for homeless families. We run shelters for homeless single adults. And then we also are responsible for the entire borough of the Bronx to conduct the street homeless outreach program. Mm-hmm. And so those programs, for obvious reasons, cannot shut down. And so then the scramble on that side was to try to get our hands on personal protective equipment, making sure that our staff and our clients remain safe. We were in search, as everyone else was at that time, for masks. Which were in real short supply. Yeah. And so there were a number of things, real hurdles that we had to get through and work together very quickly to try to make sure that we were still able to provide the services. On the children and youth side, and let me just step back so that people understand the organization as a whole, right?
Right. Yeah.
So BronxWorks itself has been in existence since 1972. We were formerly known as the Citizens Advice Bureau. And to date, we serve approximately 60,000 individuals and families a year. And we do that in various different ways. So we run, as I mentioned, our homeless portfolio is very large. We also do a number of things that try to prevent people from becoming homeless. So we run a number of eviction prevention programs as well. We help place people into jobs. So we operate workforce development programs. A large number of our programs are also children and youth. And so we have approximately anywhere between 6,000 to 8,000 young people in our care, running after school programs for elementary school, middle school, programs for high school students and older adults, young adults. And we also run pre-K programs, early childcare centers. We do a lot with health. So we try to promote healthy living by doing lots of health and wellness workshops and nutritional workshops, farmers markets and farm stands. And then we also operate food pantries because, as we know, the Bronx is a very food insecure borough, and that was pre-COVID, right? So
I just have to ask you one thing. How many staff do you have?
So we employ close to 1,000 staff.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're spread across about 42, 43 different locations. I lose count because I feel like every time I look the other way, we have another site. And so we're about 1,000 strong in the Bronx, and we're concentrated in the southern part of the Bronx, although we have borough-wide programs. One thing I failed to mention, another significant part of the agency also works very closely with seniors. So we run a number of senior centers, elder abuse programs, crime victims programs, immigration, English as a second language, just a host of anything that you can think of, we provide in the Bronx. So with COVID, for the programs that were considered non-essential, we looked very closely at New York State website to make sure they were defining what programs were essential and which ones were not. And so we switched everything to remote if they were not classified as essential programs. Okay. And so then those were the programs that really had to start operating virtually. And that could be difficult, right? Our employees, like everyone else, have children, and so now their children are home with them as well. They have performed distance learning with their children, and then for anyone who was in one of our children and youth programs, they also then have to do that in the afternoons with a large group of other people's children. So it was quite challenging for people. And then what remained open besides the shelters were our food pantries. And that's really where we saw the biggest increase in need.
So how many people approximately were going through the food pantry before the pandemic?
So we operate food pantries at several different locations. Right. And so we have 2 large senior centers that actually operate food pantries on twice a month, that were operating twice a month before, pre-COVID. One day of the month was reserved for seniors exclusively, and then the other was reserved for the general population. And so we had a high number of individuals attending both those days, right? And so at the 2 different locations. And then we also operate a food pantry out of our main location, which is 1130 Grand Concourse, right next door to Housing Court. That food pantry was serving about 125 families every other Saturday. And so what we saw was that we had a lot of new families that weren't even connected to BronxWorks at all, which was surprising to us, start to show up during the onset of COVID. And then we also started seeing that people were lining up earlier and earlier. So we would get there. So it starts on Saturdays at 9 a.m. We were operating from 9 to 1 every other Saturday. And the employees would arrive at 8. We found that when we would arrive at 8 a.m., not only was there sort of our regulars that we were used to seeing, but we had lots of new people. So then the regulars started arriving earlier. And it got to the point where people were standing online at 3 a.m. And then the latest was 1 a.m. The earliest was 1 a.m. So we had to shift how we were operating, because we obviously didn't want families with children standing outside all through the night. And so we moved to appointment style only. So then we would call people for appointments. And we also were fortunate enough to partner with another Bronx organization Step Up for Better Living, who also provided us with some funding. And so now we operate every single Saturday. And we've seen our numbers. It's essentially, we have about a 700% jump all throughout our food pantries. We were providing food at our workforce development department, which does not provide food. They had to transition to providing food. We had people that we had placed into jobs come back to us essentially saying, I lost my job. I was laid off because of COVID. Can you help me find another job? And in the meantime, can you help me provide food for my family? And so then we quickly mobilized to operate a pantry out of those programs. We did the same with our children and youth program. So they were operating remotely to provide services to children and after school programs. But during the day, we actually had staff coming in on site and opening their doors and serving food there. So that program was the latest to sort of like start up doing a food pantry. So they opened in late April. And from late April to now, they've provided 15,000 meals to people. And so that's what the need is. And that's really how we had to shift. And I think you'll find that a number of organizations have done the same thing, just because of the food insecurity in the Bronx has really.
And we had Margaret D'Elia on, and she just sent out an email saying that they're running out of food.
Right.
So are you concerned about that?
So we, as I mentioned, we've been fortunate. We've received a number of grants. So before we were very dependent on receiving food through donations or through the food bank. And because the demand for food all across the city has increased, it was starting to become difficult to have food. The other thing is that we also provide a pantry that's client choice. So we have fresh produce, and so people are able to essentially shop. Not during COVID, they can't physically shop. So they get a menu of what the items are and what they would like to have. And the employees bag the food for them and then hand it to them so that there's minimal contact. But so what we found is, because we've been able to successfully obtain grants, we now purchase our own food so that we don't have to cancel any of our pantry days or close early. We extended our hours. We now operate from 9 to 3. We find that because of social distancing requirements and, making sure that people use hand sanitizers, we're taking temperatures. That takes a lot more time to operate the pantry. So we had to extend our hours and still be able to provide food to more than, so before it was 125 families, now we do 200 families every Saturday. Plus we bag another 40 bags and we send those out to seniors.
It's really an amazing operation. As you know, I was there. I stopped by Saturday, and people are so grateful, and there's such a sense of community there, even as they're standing online. And it was hot on Saturday. Never mind the people working, because you're all inside. That was like an oven as you're bagging. The staff is, if she's not there, but I can attest to the fact that she's bagging food along with everybody else, and Gianna, who works with her, and John. So there's really a wonderful sense of community, but it's hard work, and it's you can see how much it means to people and how much they need this. And that's what I'm hearing all over. We've interviewed a number of people. We interviewed Christina from POTS. So there've been a number of organizations that, even if POTS obviously was doing a lot of work in the food area, but as you said, everybody's talking about food, and people are talking about how long this will go on, that the need will be how this great, and what people will have to do and how they will have to switch into being food organizations. So we need to take a little break. But then when we come back, I want to talk to you about the remote learning piece, because we had a little conversation about that and how that is all going.
Sure.
So, okay. So welcome back, everybody. I'm Eileen Newman, the host of Mission BX, and I'm here talking with Eileen Torres from BronxWorks. BronxWorks does more things than you can imagine to help in the community. And we've been talking about the food pantry that they run and the food needs in the Bronx. Now we want to have a little conversation about remote learning and how that is all going, because obviously this is something that's going to be a big concern going forward as we navigate whether kids will go back to school or what will happen. So you've been, first of all, you said that you were getting computers for the staff. What about the people who are coming in and you've been working with them? Because I know we've heard a lot of stories about there's one computer and 4 kids. And
right. So we have been able to, early on, we received a donation of some laptops, and we were able to distribute that to various students. So some of them were in our elementary program, some were middle school. We also run a high school equivalency program for young adults who are not in school, not at work. And even though the testing has been suspended, right, by the state, we're still trying to prepare students for that. And so a number of them did not have access to devices that would allow them then to log on. So we were able to also give those out. But you can give the device, you still need to have an ability to, sign on to the internet. And so that was also quite a challenge. Even with the laptops that the Department of Ed gave out to the students, they were supposed to come with sort of a hotspot already. And so for a number of young people who live in buildings where they're not able to access the hotspot, they're not able to log on. Our shelters, for example, we have a number of shelters that we operate for homeless families. And of course, there are students in those buildings, and our buildings are not wired for internet. And so we had to scramble there to try to figure out. We were able to obtain a grant through Robin Hood, and we were able to wire all of our shelters for homeless families so that the students can log on. But then we also had to make sure that they all have devices. It's keeping in mind the fact that families, for the most part, there isn't usually just one child in the family. There's a number of children in usually in a cramped apartment where they're all trying to do the remote learning. And perhaps the parent might be trying to log on for work. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge for our clients. It's a challenge for our families, our employees as well, who are also trying to work.
Right.
Their own children are trying to log on. And for a number of students, it took a long time to, one, receive a device that they can use, and two, to have internet that they can log on to. And so I think that there was probably a lot of learning that was lost.
Yes.
They weren't able to keep up with their studies. And as we look into the fall and start thinking about the fall, I'm not quite sure what the fall would look like. Even as we, I think what they're considering now is the sort of half of the students in and then half out. And I'm not sure how the parents then tell their employer, I can come in this week, but I can't come in next week because I have no one to watch my children.
Right.
So there'll be a number of challenges for the general population, and also for organizations like BronxWorks, because our employees also have children, many of whom attend school. And so then what will they do for work as well? So.
Yeah, everybody is very concerned, I think, about that whole piece of kids whose life already can be somewhat tumultuous, kids who are living in shelters with their family, and now it's become even more tumultuous. So do you see those numbers going up? Are there more families, more homeless families and more homeless individuals that you've been working with?
So right now there's a moratorium on evictions. And so people aren't necessarily getting evicted. And so I don't think we'll see an increase until that moratorium is lifted. And so there is an ongoing debate about the idea. So they have essentially said you can't get evicted, but you're still supposed to be paying rent for all these months.
Right.
And so at the point that gets lifted, then I'm sure we'll have a number of families that will have a difficult time coming up with several months' rent. And so I think you'll more than likely see a huge increase at that point of really unstably housed families.
Right. And so last time we did the show, we saw adorable little people who were taking naps. I remember when we were visiting. And so yes. Is that a childcare? I don't remember. Is that a childcare center? And have you opened that now? Because don't they open today, I think?
We did not open today. So we have 2 early childcare centers, and they both have about 55 young children. So those are centers that are open for ages between 2.9 and 5 years of age. And during the summer, our enrollment decreases anyway because a number of families either go away. I'm not quite sure where people are right now because no one's really going away.
I know.
So it's typically the enrollment drops. I do think right now what we're looking at is trying to make sure, there's they've come out with new guidelines on, children can't share toys and how to clean. And so they just came up with those guidelines last week. And so they did lift and say that we can start accepting children as of today, but we need to make sure that we have a program that ensures the safety of the children and our staff. And so we're taking our time to make sure that we go through and see how we can actually, if we can, operate and open the center. So
when I listen to those guidelines, I think whoever wrote them has never been near a child.
Right.
Talk about, I mean, you can imagine these kids bursting in who have been not around other kids to any degree.
Right. So the first time they're seeing each other after all these months, first time they're seeing their teachers after all these months, the amount of hugging that they want to do.
I know. That's all I could picture was, yes, that's what they do.
That's right. That's right. And they won't understand as much sort of the idea of, you sit there away from John over here.
Exactly. And that's why when he's finished, you can get it. And then you have to give it to somebody else in 3 minutes. So it's kind of unimaginable to think about how that's going to work. And so going forward, as you think about the fall, as you think about down the line, what are some of your biggest concerns about the future of the people you're working with, the future of your staff?
Well, I think, and I'm sure others have talked about this as well. I think we'll see a lot of mental health challenges, start to display in various behaviors, especially among the youth. We're social creatures, and so people have been cooped up at home for a very long period of time. There isn't any interaction. I think as we start thinking about what our programs look like, and again, keeping in mind that some of our programs, a number of our programs, at least at BronxWorks, never shut down. And so that, we've been thinking about these things and about safety regularly and daily. But I do think that, we have to prepare ourselves for the fact that there will be some challenges that we see with some of the young people, right? And some of the adults, our seniors. Yeah. There's 2 main reasons for senior centers, right? And that's eating, so that we can make sure that seniors eat healthy meals, and then socialization. And so if seniors are isolated for a long period of time, that's quite damaging. And so, there is a huge concern there. I failed to mention the amount of work that our employees and our senior centers also did in the very beginning with, I have to say, with the ever-changing rules that the city of New York came up with. First, it was grab-and-go meals and making sure that, we did that. And then it became, don't do the grab-and-go meals, call the seniors and tell them where they can get their food. And then deliveries were... like food was delivered to our senior center instead. And then from there, the seniors got a lot of it was very chaotic. and somewhat unplanned, and you can understand some of it because this was a very unexpected situation, and everyone always says unprecedented, but there was a lot of work that was happening on the senior center side as well, but our seniors are suffering as a consequence too.
Yeah.
So I know that we've thought of ways that we can actually engage. We've continued virtual classes and workshops with our seniors and our students. I think one thing that came out of this is our staff have become very creative. We had staff with young people planning college tours, virtual college tours with our young adults who were ready at this point to really start thinking about college. And so they were doing these virtual tours with them, which was, nice way to sort of continue that, right?
Right.
We did these virtual trips. And so our students went to places like Jamaica and Barbados, all virtually, of course. But you have to continue ways to keep them engaged and interested, while also making sure that they're still learning.
Yeah.
And now the summer, the camps certainly help to reduce summer learning loss. And so, I am concerned about whether or not we can really adequately do that. There's a hybrid model that the city's pushing of sort of in-person and virtual, and we're all doing the best we can, certainly.
Right.
But it is difficult, and we find ourselves in a situation that we didn't plan on being in. But everyone has been just, especially I think for the staff at BronxWorks, and I'm sure all across the city, people have really gone above and beyond, and are very passionate about the work and the people who come in who need the services, and making sure that they're still sort of performing at their A game. And I really commend the staff at BronxWorks for doing that. So, and
we are hearing that from a lot of people. But I have one last question, and that is, how are you taking care of yourself in all of this?
Well, it's hard to find a balance now. Well, we joked, in the agency, that for many of us, we often find that we work a number of hours, right? Long hours. And I think pre-COVID, we always thought like there isn't any way possible we can work any more hours. And then COVID hit, and you thought, I was slacker before COVID because there were more hours than working. So that's, it's difficult. It's difficult. I do have a new baby. So I have a 6-month-old.
A little.
Yeah, I'm sorry. We have a 6-month-old, and so that's one way that I make sure he forces me to make time for him and for myself. So it's one of the things that I've been able to enjoy. He has been a great distraction.
I was going to say, what better distraction than a new baby? So. Yeah. That's great. Well, thank you for taking the time to do this, and for everything, Eileen. It was really wonderful to see the work that you're doing firsthand. So,
thank you very much for having me. I enjoyed it.
This was great. So hopefully we'll talk again soon.
Yes.
Thanks.
Love that. Thank you.
Bye. That's all we have time for today. I know we could have talked to Eileen Torres from BronxWorks for a long time about their work. If you've missed any part of this and would like to see it again, go to BronxNet.tv and look for Mission BX, and you'll be able to see this show and other shows that we've done. And keep looking for us, because we'll be back with another series of shows about nonprofits in the Bronx.